Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today it's a react to No More Tears, Star Citizen is better because of Master Modes by Buzzcut Psycho. Given he's in a Firebird, I expect this video to be troll, but it'll be hilarious, as his videos usually are. And I kind of agree with the title. Star Citizen is better because of Master Modes. It's way better. But it's definitely got a long way to go. It's been a while since I've kind of updated you guys with my opinion on Master Mode, so this will be a good opportunity for that. And a good chance to get back onto the React bandwagon. I definitely miss these kind of conversational videos and reacting to them. It's just been a quiet period of Star Citizen, yeah? We just saw Xeno threaten Jumptown into the sunset, which means now it's going to really slow down. It's a good time to get back on this. I do miss these type of videos and looking forward to it, yeah? Where are we at with Master Modes? It's funny. Where we are is exactly where I told you guys we would be, yeah? And I don't say that casually. I mentioned early on that and you guys can check this, yeah? Fact check me all you want. Go look at the video where I said, what is my major concern in Master Modes? It is that the winning strategy would be to phalanx with numbers, and that it would be extremely difficult to fight outnumbered. And that is exactly the case, yeah? Because these fights are happening across such short distances, string out gameplay is really hurting, and I feel like they kind of need to blend where we're at now a little closer together. Add some more string out gameplay, but not make it so binary different between the archetypes, just to allow for some kiting, some chasing, some intercepting, stuff like that. And I think the answer to that is the boost system with the 2-speed system, kind of maybe less difference when it comes to these 2 speeds, when it boosted and unboosted. That should stretch out some of the gameplay a little bit. But we're exactly where I predicted we are, which I put in my major concern video. I challenge you guys to look at that, because that is exactly where we are and ended up being. Also, the Hornets are still the most overpowered ship by miles. You guys, you know, or I shouldn't say you guys, because it was people that rarely comment on my videos mentioned, oh, it's the Buccaneers, the best ship. Everyone knows it. Yeah, well, you guys look real silly now because the Buccaneers are a terrible ship, and it's only being held onto by people that refuse to adapt to the flight model. You fly the Buccaneer, you're kind of outskirting fights, you're playing to lose. You don't have much confidence in your ability to fight through your target, and it's just not as powerful as people were led to believe. Yeah, it's just not nearly as powerful. I'm not saying it's a bad ship, but it's just nowhere near competitive in comparison to our Hornet series, yeah? And that doesn't just go for the Mark II F7A, that goes for all of the Hornets. They are so strong. Damage is just way too high. But we're looking forward to some changes that are coming in 3.24. Some tweaks here and there. Buffs to the Gladius to allow it to push. And some nerfs to the Hornet's ability to chase. Some agility differences, stuff like that. And some repeater buffs, which I'm a little concerned of because that promotes range, like ranged combat, which means encouraging people to back up and kite and stuff like that. But some good changes are on the way. I do think what's coming should perform a bit better, but we'll see, yeah? Anyways, it's time for me to stop rambling. Let's get into the video and see what we think.
There doesn't really seem to be a day that goes by where there is not a thread on Spectrum about Master Modes. Somebody complaining about it, somebody not liking it, saying it's killed the game. Completely insane arguments. And I've started to think to myself, you know, I want to do a video about this. I haven't done one in a while. So I've been kind of torturing myself and very attentively reading these and trying to compile, maybe make sense of the arguments and the complaints and decipher through the stupidity to kind of see what they're saying and what the complaints are.
He's so blunt.
I think I've got a lot of it. I think I've nailed it here. So let's begin. The first and most common complaint that I see is speed. People talk about the speed, the FCM speed cap, and that it's not as good as it was before and all this stuff. Well, the speed that we had before which was uncapped. You can still get that speed, just gotta go into nav mode, right? But that speed was not conducive to having a good dogfight. It wasn't conducive to having a good team fight. Maybe if you were a really good player, you could have a 1v1 if the other party consented to it and agreed to fight you without flying away.
Yep.
But
which rarely happened when the chips were down, yeah? It's like two opponents would bow and then they'd start the fight. And then the moment one opponent didn't like the other, they'd just turn the fight into cancer and start kiting, start backstrafing, start pulling apart, resetting for shield, stuff like that. So it's so true, right? Like, did you have the feeling of speed in the last flight model? Yes, you had the feeling of speed. Nothing else was good about it, in my opinion. Yeah, nothing else was good about it. I've seen what the tournament level dueling looked like. Okay, my augmate was in it, and it's Osu. Okay, Google Osu if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's arcadey, just aim at the pip. Yeah, like there's not much to it. And now you're actually having to use head tracking and push for position and stuff like this. Mind you, they have to work on that positional combat, but the 1v1s were not in a good place. Yeah, like the one upside to the last flight model was that you could 1v4 and 1v5 people that had no clue what they're doing, which isn't a good game for the rest of the community. But I do think the skill ceiling can go higher when it comes to this stuff. Now, when he mentions SCM, he's talking about two speeds, right? Unboosted, the 200-ish range, then the boosted 400 to 500-ish range, right? Now, the problem is that that's two speeds, okay? One on top of the other. Now, I think where most of the community wants to happen is to bring up the unboosted speed, yeah? And this is what I would argue, right? Bring up the unboosted speed to be closer to the boosted ceiling, okay? And then boost as a mechanic is more about acceleration. It does increase the speed limit, but it also drastically increases the acceleration. Because I'll tell you what, in the last, however many months, I think it's been 3, 4, whatever, right? I don't know. But however many months of Master Modes it's been, I feel like the one consistent issue I'm having, and most of our guys are complaining about in Discord, is that when you are in a fight with something face to face, it's like you're not. Go doesn't mean forward. Like you're pushing forward. It doesn't matter because you're just drifting, and you're like barely getting closer, and because you can't actually meaningfully push people while you're drifting, you just get stuck in these kind of face-to-face stalemate duels, and that you just die because you're either less with the capacitor, you might have missed a couple shots, and that's it. Yeah, like it's a bit binary because of the lack of ability to push and really arrest your own momentum. Yeah, like they just, if I were to tell you what I think we need is it's like 10% more ability to go forward. Just a little bit more to encourage positional combat. And then again, if unboosted speed comes up a little bit, and acceleration is more a part of the boost mechanic, then I think we'll start to see some more like merging stuff, a little bit more retreat tactically in team fights, not being as extremely gate kept by your boost pool and stuff like that. Yeah, I think we'd start to see some of the flight characteristics we liked about the old flight model in the new. Because I think that's the issue. I think the two-speed system is at the core of the problem, and it's just a bit brutal. Yeah, it's the same with the archetypes. I think the archetypes are too far apart, and I think if they were blended a little closer together, then these archetypes could hold on to their personalities, their DNA, but then become a more enjoyable experience across the board. Because the problem is, Master Modes is great in a light fighter, which is not competitive and not the meta. And then it's really dull and kind of, I don't know, what would the word be? Boring, like vanilla when it comes to the medium heavy classes, because they're so weapon based and like hull based that they fly like mini constellations. Can't believe I've stretched 1 minute of this video out to 10, but That's kind of where I'm at with it all.
Really, with that old speed, nothing got done. And the focus of this argument, the reason why this is happening, they perceive that something has been taken away from them. And players don't often like that. Even if it's for the betterment of the game, even if it's for the betterment of the player themselves, when they have something taken away, there is this very childish response to lash out without really understanding what was taken away or why. And this reminds me of, and I hate talking about it, but it reminds me of World of Warcraft when you had flying mounts. Flying mounts broke the overworld. Flying mounts, to a great degree, killed a lot of what made that game special.
Yes,
but
I
people
agree.
liked it because it was convenient. It let them get around and do things very quickly. And I think a big part of that also translates to master modes. That they're like, oh, well, I can't fly around at 1.5, ms anymore and zoom around and get my stuff done. They can. They just have to go into nav mode. But they can't dogfight at that speed. And this is, I think, where the big hangup is coming from these people, is they don't want to use the nav mode switch.
Look, he's fighting with our guys.
But, going on to nav mode, they don't like the shields going away. And this is, in my opinion, a very psychological thing for people. Because this game right now is based entirely around your shields. As a matter of fact, everything is heavily skewed towards your shields. When your shields go down, you don't live very long. It doesn't matter how big your ship is. This is not a master modes issue. This is an issue with the game leaning too heavily on shields and not having armor, not having HP mean anything, and having the end state of a ship.
The thing is, too, is like, I think the people, and correct me if I'm wrong, the people that are complaining about not having shields in nav are the guys in the heavier ships, like the larger ships that have the slower top speeds even in nav, and then, are looking for some more survivability and stuff. It's like people that are predominantly playing in nav mode and not playing most of their gaming experience in SCM, right? So it's almost like maybe it's other purposed ships are people complaining about and stuff like that. I'm just not sure I really understand the argument. Like, who cares about the shields? Like, I don't, in my bubble, like in my PvP combat bubble, I don't care about losing shields when you're in nav mode because you don't need them. Once you're in nav mode, I don't need shields. I'm safe with speed. And so is anyone. So maybe it's more those ships that are limited in their nav mode speeds that are complaining about getting chased down by ships with a higher nav speed. Like cargo haulers, stuff like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I haven't too much looked at the logistics, other purpose-based ships when it comes to master modes and how they fit into the picture, but I'd imagine it's that.
Basically being exploding. So until we get more systems, I can definitely understand why people don't like that feeling of being vulnerable when they're in nav mode. But you have to understand the idea behind going into nav mode was to get players to commit to something.
Look at him trash talking in local chat. He kills the IROS, whistles the idiot down.
And to make a choice. And I think Master Modes has failed at that. If you go into AC,
dude, he's griefing.
You get into a dogfight and they're in a team fight, you will notice that everybody just think things are going bad. Right? They pop noise, they enter nav, and they fly away. Yep. So the fight commitment part's just not happening. Even in the PU, I have never felt committed to a fight. I've never felt like I couldn't just leave anywhere. And the nav mode change was designed to try
I love the nav mode change. Like, I do. Like, it's so good. I love the fact that when you pull out of nav, it's like coming out of warp. And it's like acts as a handbrake instead of normal, like, natural braking. It just slams you out. So you can do this to, like, basically warp onto someone and stuff like that. Like, I love the nav system, guys. Out of all the complaints, I don't understand that one the most. I love the nav change. A good example is because now when we bring interdicting ships to interdict a group, a target, whatever, now I know that that interdictor ship is actually going to score people a kill or actually catch the target like it's intended to. But back in the last flight model, if you interdicted someone, it just meant that they weren't going to quantum jump away from you, but they would escape you still easily. So I love the fact that interdiction ships are now buffed in that sense. I love the fact that some ships have higher nav speed than others. I love the fact that fighting is now a commitment and you start to get debuffs or consequences to trying to escape rather than just escaping for free like it was in live. Like, here's the thing, guys. Look at the last 3 videos I made, right? Like, gameplay videos. Orgs can now fight each other and wipe each other. I've been playing for 3 or 4 years. I could not ping our org to go fight another org, even if they were interested in combat, because combat wasn't possible. It didn't work. Like, it legitimately just did not work. So now it does. Now we can go fight a group, we can lose or win, and then come back, you know, and have another fight again and again and have fun, like actually reach a result, not run out of fuel and have to go repair mid-fight all the time and stuff like that. Now these fights are actually happening. Org fights over Jumptown, duels, bounty hunting, interdiction, piracy, all this stuff, it's happening far more frequently now. Is the experience like does it have a high skill ceiling? Does it have a depth to it? Not enough. Like, it needs to evolve. We need to add layers to this. But man, it's been great so far. It's just got to keep growing. This can't be the finished product. I don't think Buzzcut thinks that. I don't think I think that. But I am so glad that we are now fighting this game in 2 different speeds. One that better performs at an MMO, performance-wise. One that makes sense with the weapon speeds and stuff like that. We got a cat here. Hold on. And the game just makes sense now. I love it.
Counter that.
It's just got to keep growing.
Hasn't. So when I see these complaints and I go, oh, well, I'm not flying fast enough. Well, you can fly fast enough if you go into nav mode, so you can get your chores done by going into nav mode. Followed up by, oh, well, if I go into nav mode, my shields are gone and I'm vulnerable. Well, you got to make a choice. Do you want to fly away and avoid the fight? Or do you want to commit with your shields, enter SCM speed, and have a battle?
Yep.
That's the whole purpose here. I don't see that going away. If you put the shields back to nav mode, I don't personally care. And the reason why I don't care is because, like I said before, it doesn't really stop anything. They're gone anyway. So this is a struggle that CIG is going to have to balance. This is something they're going to have to figure out. Because the current system, it's not really preventing what it wanted to prevent. And it's also annoying people. And that annoyance is, again, purely psychological. And that psychological annoyance comes from the fact that your armor and your HP, they're non-existent. They don't mean anything. And that's especially hurtful for bigger ships, which are very easy to hit. And you would think they'd have a lot of HP and would be very durable. You would be surprised, or maybe not, how quickly a C2 can die to a single Hornet with cannons when its shields are gone. Another one of the complaints I see is that Master Modes has somehow invalidated a lot of the other ships in the game. I don't see this one, but I hear it a lot.
I don't understand that either. Like, that was the same issue in live. There was 2 good ships, barely 2, and that was it. Like, one would be good for dueling, one would be good for, like, maybe 1 or 2 were good for dueling, and 1 was good for group fights, and that was like it. So, if anything, I think way more ships are viable now. I mean, look, he's in a Saber Firebird launching missiles. He's in a missile boat. He's in a interceptor class with missiles and stealth. Like, look at, like, the video answers that.
And a lot of times they point to the Hornet Mark II, which is...
I swear my cat knows I'm making a video, because now he is towering over my computer, staring at the power button. He hasn't been active like this at all for the last 5 hours, but now that I'm talking to my computer, here he is.
Overpowered. Even after the nerf, it's still overpowered. It's the best single seat fighter in the game.
Yeah, there, and he
But
knocks
lot of
over a
this is,
plant.
again, this is a balance issue. This is not a Master Modes issue. And it just so happens that Master Modes came out with really bad balance for individual ships and ship weapons. And none of that's been touched on yet. But players don't care, because they're in the PU or in AC and they're playing, and all they see are Hornets. And it doesn't help that the Hornet is locked behind the pledge store, so it's, you know, arguably quote-unquote pay to win. So players see that, and they go, well, this is the result of Master Modes. Master Modes has done this. No, it's the balance. But before Master Modes, we really didn't see a variety of ships, and arguably we see more ships now, even with the Hornet being overpowered. Before we ever saw the Gladius,
and I
Arrow,
think if they here, guys, I'm just gonna show you the cat. Yeah, like you want to see the cat? Look at the cat. Okay, hopefully you guys can see him. This is the boy. Okay, a little menace here, right here. Probably can't see him that well. Maybe I can do this. There we go. Anyways, there we go. But yeah, no, I think if the Hornet were to get nerfed, for example, you'd probably be looking at the Buck would be next up. But you take the Hornet and the Buck out of the equation. Just imagine they were banned. I think we would see such a spread of ships. It would be crazy. But they've really backed themselves into a corner with these Hornets, guys, because they are not supposed to have this much damage in comparison to the other ships. And they are just grossly overpowered, and I can't see them not being the meta unless they do something very drastic with the weapons or the capacitor, because it's the offense that's the issue. As long as they've got that much or that amount of offense, then I just can't see them not being the best option to pick. Maybe if TTK is longer and ships could survive for longer, then maybe. But the Hornets are a real issue. But there's so many viable picks if you take the Hornet out of the equation. We've seen it in tournaments and stuff like that.
Oh, the bugged Hornet Mark 1. Maybe something else. I don't know. I doubt it. But we basically saw the same 3 ships. Now if you go into AC, you can see people competing with the Hornet, the Hawk, the Arrow, the Gladius. They're not as good as the Hornet Mark II, but you do see a lot more variety. You also see the bigger ships. So Master Modes has succeeded on the front of making more ships viable. But the imbalance you see with the favoritism towards the Hornet and cannons especially, that's balanced, that's not Master Modes. Another complaint that I see here that I'm looking at is skill has been reduced, that there are no more ace pilots. That I disagree with entirely. There is still a level of skill in Master Modes. It is not as high or esoteric as the old flight model. Now, it's still esoteric in its own way, and I could do an entire video about why players are struggling with Master Modes, and I will, but this is not the video for it. But it has a lot more accessibility. It's not all the way there yet.
Yeah, that's the big one.
But a lot of that accessibility hurdle isn't necessarily because of Master Modes. It's because players have, by default, awful settings. The game just launches you with the worst settings in the game. So to even have a chance to fight, you've got to disable so many settings. And you have to enable so many hidden settings. And then you have to understand that you can't be bi-cording or tri-cording. You have to understand that you have to fight inside the pitch, not in the yaw of the 45. There's so much more different esoteric knowledge. But again, that is not a problem or a result of Master Modes. That's a new player experience problem. That's a intuitiveness problem. That's just a lot of problems with the game itself, not necessarily Master Modes, and those could be ironed out. But for a new player or even an average player to even have a chance, they have to get through that initial non-gameplay related hurdle, and then they get thrown into a fight with players who have already disabled or enabled certain abilities and functions, and then they get smoked. And they say, oh, well, the skill here is gone. Where's the skill? the skill's not gone. It's just different now. No, you're not going to see players 1v4 and 1v5 and 1v3ing even players anymore. But we are going to see are orgs, good ones like, you know, Shadow Moses, right? They specialize in
there you go.
fight.
Look at that shout out. I didn't know about the shout out. That's hilarious. What do I feel about with the skill and aces? I think the skill ceiling is too low. Okay, the skill floor is a lot lower, meaning accessible, right? Like, just so people understand the definition. When you say the skill floor is low, it means players can pick it up and are welcome to play and can get deep into it. Well, not deep, but can get into it quickly. Makes the game accessible by having a low skill floor. We like that, yeah? We want more people PvPing. We want wars in Star Citizen. We want gangs, orgs, take each other's bases. We want PvE to be fun, engaging, challenging. We want flying spaceships to be the coolest thing about Star Citizen, yeah? And we want it to be accessible with all different controls, all that stuff. That's a great thing. The downside is that it is harder. No, sorry. There's not much depth and there's not many limits you can push this to anymore, like you could the last flight model. And the problem is with the last flight model, pushing it to limits just meant you were breaking the game. The hardest to kill, the best pilots in the last flight model were probably breaking the game the hardest. That's how it felt. It felt like the game was breaking the hardest when you were fighting them. It didn't feel like you were getting out-positioned and, you know, they were pulling great maneuvers. It just felt like they were hard to hit and they were very accurate. Yeah. Now we're seeing a bit more flight, not enough, but a bit more flight in that aspect. But it needs to get deeper. The skill ceiling needs to get higher. Just the ceiling. That doesn't change it being any less accessible. It just means you should be able to push it further. There should be limits you can reach. You should be able to educate friends on how to play it. Look up guides on how to get better. Should be able to master it, right? But at the moment, it's pretty low. I would blame a couple things. One, the flight tuning and the flight experience of this needs to get better. Two, the weapons suffocate a lot of the skill because the weapons are so easily accessible and frequent and destructive that they suffocate a lot of the flight. So if you reduce the effectiveness of weapons, the damage output, whatever you want, and promote flight, which is also a mathematical issue because right now the interactions between ships trying to chase each other, fight each other for position and stuff, the math ain't there. They've got to buff the ability to push and stuff like that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. But if flight becomes a more important aspect, then the skill ceiling will get deeper. If the weapons aren't suffocating out the combat, it will get deeper. But the core of the issue, okay, if I was to say what is my unique take on Master Mode's balancing and why the skill ceiling is so low, it's because the least about flight archetypes, meaning the heavy fighter and the medium fighter, are the strongest ships right now. So the ships that are literally designed to be less capable of flight, but they have more hull, and they have a lot more weapons, i.e. the Hornet, are also the lowest skilled ships right now. So Master Mode's combat is kind of stale because the most boring ships are the strongest. And the most entertaining, more difficult playstyles or gameplay is weaker in the meta, not nearly as competitive. And to this, I think the answer is, and I'll say this a million times, and people disagree with me in the video, that's okay. Let me know in the comments what you think. But I'll say this. If they take offensive damage output away from medium and heavy fighters, dial them back maybe 30%, 40%, 20%, okay? Nothing less than that. And they dial that back, but provide them with more agility as a reward because they lost as much damage, then those archetypes would become more fun to play. They'd be capable of more agility. And I think the flight model in general would be more fun because it'd be more flight based. Because Hornets are slow boats, right? They're not nearly as slow as they probably should be in comparison to the damage. But we don't want to just alienate any ship that has a large amount of weapons into like driving around like an ice cream truck. If anyone has flown the F8, for example, the Anvil F8 Lightning, you know you're flying a mini Constellation. It may as well be a Constellation, right? Like, it's so slow. And this thing's supposed to be like a premier fighter, you know, the cream of the crop. And it is so sluggish and boring. Most importantly, it's boring. It's like a hover tank. You know, it's like a huge helicopter in comparison to like an F-16. So instead of if the light fighters are the F-16s and the medium fighters shouldn't fly like commercial airlines. Sorry, or the heavy fighters like the Scythe, the Glaive, the Anvil F8 Lightning, the Hornets being the medium fighters. They shouldn't fly like airliners. They should fly like F-22s. Yeah? So like light fighters are very nimble and medium fighters should be agile, but not as agile as an F-16, for example, right? Like, and I don't want to deal with aviation nerd stuff, okay? I'm just using this as rough examples, but the medium fighters and the heavy fighters should be capable of flight more so than they are. And then I think the game would be more enjoyable for all, yeah? I think that we just need to see more flight, some more agility. And you can't give the F8 and Hornet more agility with the amount of weapons they have. They have such high damage output. It is so far off scale, like away from baseline, that this is why I keep harping on it in all my feedback. I think the only way is to bring down their damage output in comparison to the ships. And no weapon rework is going to work unless they fundamentally change the way weapons have worked ever. But the hard points are just too large. They have far too many guns. So dial back their guns a bit and make ships like the Sabre, okay, the Sabre Base, the Sabre Comet, the Anvil F8, the Hornet series, Super Hornet. Make these ships more agile and fun to fly. More agile, fun to fly, and just dial back some of the damage. And then everyone can start having fun with this. I think that's the secret sauce. I think that's the key. And I don't know if we'll get there. I don't think they're thinking along the same lines of it, but that's my take. I think that would make the game far more fun. Because I tell you what, guys, if you start playing Light Fighter competitively against your friends and duels and stuff, or fly it around the PU, it feels agile. It feels like it's a fun experience. You're gliding around. You're not as a slow boat like some of these other ships, and it's a far more enjoyable game.
And being good at that. These are guys
Has
that will
issues
take
still.
on, 10, 15 people with just 5 of their own, and they'll do well because they've mastered working as a team. They focused on working as a team. And there's other orgs out there too, so don't think that just because I named one, I know others exist, right? But these types of orgs that specialize in that type of combat, they now have a chance to actually specialize in that combat. Whereas before, those types of orgs couldn't even get a team fight because, like I said, the fights would be scattered all out. So you've got these guys who could do very good. And you're going to tell me that skill is gone? Why? Because you can now shoot down a former ace pilot who has made the...
It's true. It's like a lot of the group gameplay skill is now based off teamwork, and I prefer that. Like, I love that it's teamwork, communication, R&D, like research and preparation and stuff like that. I love that those are a larger factor to the combat and how well groups perform. Because before it was just how many ace pilots did you have in comparison to how many ace pilots did they have, and every group fight would just be a series of 1v1s. Yeah, like everyone would be fighting 1v1s. Now it's more about group gameplay for sure, but we do want the skill ceiling to get way higher still. But he's right, like groups that are flourishing right now, putting all their effort into how well they perform as a group. I'm also not of the opinion, a lot of people like to think that getting good in a 1v1 and duels is bad, like doesn't help you anymore in master modes. It couldn't be further from the truth. If you want to get good in master modes, go get good at the 1v1s first. You'll start to figure out exactly how these ships fly, what their strengths are, and you'll get better at it. Yeah, like trust me, guys. Anyone that says otherwise on that, it ain't right.
Mistake of turning his career into YouTube streaming Star Citizen? That's ridiculous. Those players are still good. They just can't do what they used to do. Is that the kind of game that people want to play? Do you want to play a game where guys who know life to game have this in and out knowledge that they can destroy 5, 10, 15 noobs all on their own? Do you think that makes for a good game? Come on.
It doesn't. He's right. Like, if you bring 40 of your friends, it's a massive show of force. That needs to be scary. Like, it does. Does it need to be... does it mean another group that's lower numbers shouldn't be able to overcome it? No. But it should be significant in it. I think in a group fight, if you are rolling around with 15, you don't deserve to be able to beat a group of 45, is what I would say. So, you know, how many pilots in a group setting should an ace pilot be worth? Like, how many, let's just say, amateur pilots should a ace fighter be worth? I'd say the number would be around 2.5. Yeah, I wouldn't want a group of aces 20 deep easily dismantling a group of 50. I'd want it to be a real challenge, really down to the wire, for a group of 20 to take on a group of 50. I want it to be possible, but by a very small margin and an extremely difficult task, because then that's more welcoming for the rest of the community, more welcoming of new players in the game, players that don't have that time to sweat. But it should still be possible, right? Like, for a group of experts, ace pilots or something, to punch above their weight. Because the problem is, if you don't have that, then a lot of fights don't happen. If there isn't a scale of possibility and enough room to make something work, then a lot of those fights don't happen. You'll have a scenario similar to EVE Online, okay? And I don't need to hear about EVE Online balancing or how you've played EVE for 10 years, okay? I'm just saying, we don't want the game to become about, oh, they've got 50, we've only got 30, stand down everybody. We don't want that. So there needs to be some room to be able to overcome larger groups, but not excessively to the point it's ruining a lot of people's fun, right? So, you know, there's a careful balance there.
It absolutely doesn't. What those types of players now are doing is shifting towards the team play role, the cohesion role. And that's what Master Modes has allowed them to do. And that front is still failing. That front's failing because the UI sucks.
Oh, that was free fly.
That front's failing because the game just has numerous issues that inhibit team play and make it very difficult. But it's there now. And there's a whole new realm of possibility that we didn't have before.
I want to ramble about this too. I know I am interrupting the video a lot, but it's been a while since I've spoke to you guys about Master Modes. But if anyone watches my stream, shout out to the guys. Give me a comment if you've been watching my streams. Yeah, I've been doing it pretty frequently. The one thing I'm really looking forward to is what Buzz is mentioning is the possibilities now, right? If we have the framework down and the speeds can change, the way the boost mechanic changes, the capacitors can change, armor can get added, stuff like that, we can start looking at other mechanics, right? A good example that I like to use on stream. What if bringing a Hornet tracker to your group provides your group with 20% increased radar range, 10% better missile tracking? You know, what if bringing a terrapin allowed you to hack comm arrays from a distance, jam radar, for example? What is the future of EMPs going to look like? Is missile gameplay going to be capable of beyond visual range? Will there be long distance torpedoes? You know, are deep torpedoes finally going to work? You know, are we going to have heat sinks like in Elite Dangerous where you can dump out the heat and go cold and silent run? You know, like there's a lot of room for new mechanics that haven't existed or have barely had any attention in the last decade. And that's what they need to do now, right? Is start adding layers to this, and complexity, and fun. Yeah.
So yes, is the game on an individual level easier? Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Is it brain dead, stupid mobile phone easy? Absolutely not.
No, it's not. Yeah.
I've also found it very strange that players would brag or hold individual pilot skill in very high regard in Star Citizen when the game is mostly populated by space dads, casuals, or people just kind of checking in on it here and out. It's never been something that I've felt was a great flex, right? You go into the PU, you stomp on people, you're going to stomp on them not even with master modes, you're just not going to stomp on them as hard as you used to. But to place a lot of your value and self-worth in the old flight model or even the current flight model for a 1v1 basis in a game that's supposed to be an MMO, again, very strange to me, not my cup of tea. Also, the game has built-in auto-aim. Let's be real here, guys. If people hate bullet magnetism and auto-aim in games like Halo or Call of Duty or shooter games with controller aim assist, why does it get a pass in Star Citizen? Because you're in a friggin' spaceship? Come on, get real. It's an ego check. The Master Modes has been an ego check for a lot of people. And those people are certainly who have gotten their egos checked, and you probably know who I'm talking about. They've taken to the forums, they've mobilized their brigade of sycophants to go on there and cry and repeat the same talking points. But it's not going to change anything.
Talking? Yeah, guys, I want you to let me know what you think he's talking about.
That's why the subject of this video is stop crying about Master Modes. Learn to deal with it. The system is not perfect, but it's going to get better. It's going to improve. What you have now is not at all the final form. And it definitely is, again, like I said, lacking. But the only thing that you can do right now is accept that this is what you have. And you can either not play, which I prefer that you do play, but you can either not play, or you can go in there and you can challenge yourself. You can go into Arena Commander and you can fight players who are good. And you can take your lumps. Now, you go in there and you take your beating, and you come out and you're going to tell me there's no skill? You're going to go in there and face down one or two good players who are dominating the scoreboard because they're working together as a team, and you're going to tell me that there's no skill? That's absolutely nonsense. But you do owe it to yourself, because going on the spectrum and complaining and thinking that the system is going to be reverted after all the time and effort has been put into it is preposterous. It's simply not going to happen. And in closing, I would also like to point out that I think the majority of the player base either doesn't care about Master Modes or is happy with it. You will see a vocal minority of players using social media platforms like Spectrum or Reddit or whatever it may be to complain. Of course they're going to complain. Happy customers don't complain. Angry customers complain. And these people, I think they probably represent a very small portion of the user base. I mean, you guys listening here, how many of you actually read Spectrum for anything other than amusement or curiosity? It's like going to the zoo,
True.
Right?
It's like going to the zoo.
And it's the strangest collection of idiots I've ever seen. These people are so out of touch with reality, gaming, Star Citizen, their own lives. And when you look at it, you should just look at it as a cautionary tale of this is what you can become if you're like these people. And that should be enough of a warning not to go there. The Spectrum, it's very, very appropriately named. And it's a bit like looking into the abyss. And you know what they say about looking into the abyss. So that's my rant video. I really like Master Modes. I think you guys should get some more practice in and understand that it's very work in progress. And any of the complaining and whining and crying you see on Spectrum, that doesn't represent the majority of us. And if you don't like the system, that's fine. But I'm telling you, it's not going to change very much. It's not going to revert. You're never going to get back your old flight model. You have to understand and learn the system now.
It's true. Look, I can respect people not liking it. Yeah, I can understand it, and people that were attached to the old flight model, I can't because not like maybe killing NPCs was a bit more fun, but I don't see why you would enjoy the flight model for PvP outside of 1v1 honorable duels last flight model because it was not better. It was way worse. But I can respect that people, might not like it. Not everything's going to be everyone's cup of tea, right? Like, I hear you guys, right? I'm just trying to look at what we've got, look at where it works, and look at where it doesn't, and provide feedback. Yeah. But I'm not gonna, kick and scream and not give them credit for things that are working great. Instead, I'm gonna try and show the path to where this might be able to get better. And that's what giving feedback is. I feel the same way about FPS gameplay. It's not great. I don't want them to knock it down and restart it. I want them to fix like the core issues, right? And Master Modes is not perfect. It has plenty of issues. But my God, does it work? Like, team fights work. Like Buzzcut said, communication with teammates and teamwork is one of the greatest strengths of Master Modes now. More ships are now viable. He's flying a missile ship, an interceptor, and scoring kills. Like, there's way more. Like, Buzzcut would fly hammerheads in the last flight model. I doubt he even did dogfighting in the previous flight model. So it's definitely more welcoming. I see more faces. Some people aren't around as much, sure. But I just don't see what they were holding on to. But look, I get it. Yeah, I get it. And I hope that Master Modes gets a greater skill ceiling. I hope it becomes more about flight. I hope that some of the less appealing, less fun, more boring archetypes like the medium and heavy fighters become more enjoyable. And I hope we're all happy with what it becomes at the end. But most importantly, I'm just so glad it works now. I'm so glad that I can PvP now because I haven't been able to PvP in a long while, competitively. Yeah, so I think Buzzcut's right. Give it a chance. Go play some ships. Go learn the ins and outs of it. Try to get competitive. Look at the light fighter, because if you're in the light fighter archetype, you do duels or just fly it, you'll feel like you're flying again. And the only issue is the archetype's really weak. And it's not meta. So I think if the other archetypes can get kind of pushed towards that amount of fun, that amount of agility, then it would be fun for everybody. Yeah. So here's the hoping that it's more fun. What can we look forward to in the 3.24 patch, which should be here soon, a couple weeks or whatever? Repeaters will be competitive again, which means holding range will also be competitive. That's scary because we don't like people purposely breaking geometry like backstrafing, so that's a concern. But repeaters will be back, so there'll be more valid options with weaponry. The Hornet will be a bit slower on the speed ceiling front, a little less agile, which will probably be a good thing, maybe. It won't be fun. It won't be a good thing for the Hornets, but maybe it'll decrease the Hornet domination of the meta right now. Gladiuses have a little bit more, a higher ceiling for pushing. That'll be nice. Some tweaks here and there to different ships and stuff like that. The Hornet Ghost has better stealth mechanics now, so now it's harder to detect and stuff like that. So just some interesting mechanics are on the way with the next iteration. We'll see where we go. Definitely the egg shape isn't in this patch. I think they're still testing it internally. But that's kind of, I think, what we need, right? I think what we need is the ability to push. Holding down forward on your pedal should mean go. And at the moment, in the drifty style that is Star Citizen Combat, go doesn't mean go right now. And that's the core of the issue, I think. So hopefully they can capture that with the other ships. But guys, I'm enjoying it. Let me know what you guys think. Did we like the video? Do we like the Firebird? Is Buzzcut showing you guys the Firebird? And how powerful it is? Do we like missiles? What do we think? Yeah. What do we think about master modes, guys? Make sure you like, comment. Make sure you comment, okay? Helps me finesse the algo. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. I definitely want to get back into them, especially now that we're going to be entering a quiet pit of Star Citizen. I've definitely missed doing this, guys. You can tell because we're almost at an hour and it was only a 15-minute video. Thank you, Buzzcut. Great video. I agree with so many of these points. It's been fun, guys. Catch you in the next video, yeah? Peace.